You may remember this piece that I did a little while ago called Tidal Ballet. Well, designing these birds, I sort of thought I could probably do a bit of a series of them. So this one being the first, and I've finally got on to the second piece of artwork, which we're going to dive into today, which I'm calling Midnight Flight. Welcome to this new art piece, and I'm going to be starting off with a bit of gesso to seal in this MDF. The gesso is dry, so now it's time to hit it with some acrylic black paint. Sometimes brush strokes can give you a great lot of texture, however I like the smooth look, so it's out with the roller. There's a few ways that you can do stars. One of the ways that I quite like is just using some white acrylic paint, adding a little bit of water and making it nice and runny, so I can then use the brush and my finger to flick the stars onto the artboard. I find to get a good pattern, it's always good to do it close and then far away, and it gives you a really good splattering which looks like stars in the sky. From my earlier artwork, Tidal Ballet, I had a number of 3D printed birds left over, and this was just the perfect amount to fit onto this artwork. These 3D birds are really light, and so what I needed to do here was super glue them down so that when I poured the resin they didn't float up and float away. Of course, it's always good to do a quick test to make sure it sticks. Now it's time for the resin. What I'm doing here is making a barrier with painter's tape around the edge of the board, and this way it means I can pour the resin and it's not all going to run off the edge. This is my first time using Texpert. It's a resin I got from Amazon Australia, and I'm going to see how it goes. I've heard great things and good reviews, and so this is my first test of this resin. So this is a 1-to-1 by volume resin. However, I like to do things by weight as I can be more accurate. Texpert luckily have on their website a calculator so you can put in how many mils you'd like to get as an output, and it will tell you how much of weight of part A and how much of weight of part B. Because I've got scales, I find that this works best for me when mixing resin. One of the things I noticed about this resin was that it's quite dense. It's quite different to some of the other resins I've used, which were a lot more watery, and so I'm really excited to see how this comes out. Now for the weight measurements, I was doing 380 grams, 200 grams of that was part A and 180 grams of that was part B, and that's a 1-to-1 volume, but they weigh differently because of their density. Now I know resin is not the most eco-friendly of things for the planet. Cool when you can use it on artwork and have a piece that's going to last a long time. However, where possible I try to offset that by using paper and wood. So in this case this is a used lunch container where I purchased some Vietnamese takeaway, washed it. I'm using the wooden fork here as my mixing instrument. So this is its second use, and at least I feel less guilty when making resin things. now it's time to pour this resin. So once again, very thick and dense resin, which isn't a bad thing, I quite like that. One of the challenges I found though, is because it's not as runny as some of the other resins I'm used to, it didn't sort of spread out very quickly, so I had to give it a helping hand. Of course, that makes it a challenge when you've got these 3D printed birds on here that I didn't want to get resin on. I just wanted them to stick to the surface. So I was just trying to be careful and make sure that I got resin around the edges of them and hoped that they would flow. I did, however, have to use the help of my fork as well as a hairdryer to push that resin around a bit. This resin has a working time of around 40 minutes, and so I waited to around that 40-minute mark before I went and pulled the tape. So what this does is it lets the resin nearly cure until it's at a stage that most of it's going to stay on the board. You will now get some of the resin dripping down the side, but nowhere as much as if you had just let the resin run and had no dam around the edge. So this is where I just use my gloved hand to go around the edge of the artwork, and this way it means I get resin sealing that side edge. Health and safety people, always important to wear gloves, and of course I use a respirator when I do this as well. And here it is, the moment of truth. So the finished artwork, I am so happy with how this came out. I'm really impressed with the textured resin as well. No air bubbles, perfectly flat and smooth. I really like how this resin reflects the underside of the birds. And of course my cat Pumbaa loves it too. This artwork is now for sale in my web store, andee.co.nz. If you're interested in any art made with resin, go and check it out. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And until next time, keep creating.